On the night of August 18th, 1933, in a plain two-story building at 751 Greenwood Avenue in Tulsa, a few doors down from a dry cleaner's and a little restaurant, a wheel was turned and the numbers fell, the same as every night. And all across the neighborhood, men and women sat in their kitchens, whispering the 3 digits they had carried around all day. The Depression was grinding into its 4th year. Work was scarce, banks had failed, and the future had narrowed to whatever a person could scrape together before the first of the month. And yet that little room hummed like clockwork. Picture asking most families today to run a 50-cent enterprise out of the front room, keep the books, make the payouts, dodge the law, and cover the rent by Friday. They would not know where to begin. Their grandparents knew exactly, because for millions of ordinary, church-going, hard-working American families, the answer to going broke was not to do without. It was to quietly turn the house into a business the law had forbidden. They ran lotteries from the kitchen, shot dice in the cellar, and hid a machine behind the counter of the corner store. The whole block depended on it, and almost nobody talks about it now. It started with a thing they called the gig, a 3-number bet scratched onto a slip of paper, and it grew into something close to a homemade bank. Before we are done, you will see the backroom machine that a sheriff would one day take an axe to, and meet a woman who kept cleaner books than the banks that shut their doors on her people. 25 of them. Let's begin. Number 25. Marbles for keeps. Every kid in those years knew the difference between playing fair and playing for keeps. And the difference was everything, because for keeps meant the marble your opponent knocked out of the dirt ring was gone into his pocket forever. A good Aggie cost real money when a family had none, which is why a child could walk to school rich and walk home with empty pockets and a hard lesson. It survives now only in a few old hands that still know how to knuckle down. The first time you lost your whole bag, you learned something no teacher ever taught. Before we go on, subscribe, because what these families built out of nickels and dimes could teach a modern bank a thing or two, and you are going to want to see how high this goes. Number 24, pitching pennies against the wall. On stoops and in alleys and along the brick face of every schoolyard, boys tossed their coins, and whoever's penny landed closest to the wall swept the pile. The schools and the police both knew exactly what it was, which is why it was banned outright as gambling, while marbles was quietly tolerated. A penny was bread. A pocketful pitched away before lunch was a stomach that growled until supper. They have a name for that kind of childhood lesson, and the name is poverty. Number 23, flipping baseball cards for keeps. Old-timers will tell you the cards were the cheap part, slipped free into packages, and the real game was pitching them against a wall or matching them face-to-face, winner taking the loser's stack. It taught a boy to read ODDS before he could read a paycheck. The cards a child lost for nothing in 1933 are the same cards collectors now chase for fortunes. A quiet joke the years played on everyone who ever flipped one into the gutter. From the stoop, the game moved indoors to the kitchen table. Number 22, penny ante kitchen poker. Long after the reformers passed their laws, the private game of poker went on flourishing in homes everywhere, because no statute ever reached a man's own kitchen table on a Saturday night. The pot was pennies and matchsticks and the occasional folded dollar, and what was at stake was rarely just money. It was a week's pride, the right to walk into work Monday a little taller. There was a faster, meaner cousin played for those same pennies with a funny little name. Number 21, tonk for pennies. Tonk was the quick gin rummy style game the whole household fell into, and the records leave us one perfect picture of it. In 1937 in Richmond, Indiana, A 5-year-old saved an 11-cent bankroll for months, penny by penny, until his brothers let him sit in their game, then cleaned him out without mercy and sent him away crying. No money, no game. He grew up to gamble his whole life and said he lost plenty afterward but never cried again. There was another game gentler on the surface that quietly paid the gas bill in 1,000 parlors. Number 20, Parlor Bingo, or Biano, as plenty of folks called it. Spread a card, mark your numbers, and the first to fill a line took the cash. And whether it ran in a church basement or a front parlor, the house was always a real live person taking a cut. It sat in a legal gray fog so thick it took until the 1950s for even 11 states to admit it was legal. A nickel a card was nothing and everything. It was the one night a week a tired woman let herself hope out loud in a room full of neighbors doing the same. Everything so far you could lose a nickel at and laugh about later. From here, the stakes change. From here, a man could lose a finger, a paycheck, or the key to his own front door. Number 19, Pinochle and Rummy for the pot. The grown-up card table had its serious side, games played not for matchsticks but for a real pot that grew through the night, and old-timers swore those long sessions settled more debts and started more feuds than any courtroom in the county. The money sat under a coffee cup. Win the pot and you covered the coal bill. Lose it and you explained yourself to a wife who had counted on that coal. There was a southern game, though, that turned the whole idea of hiding your cards upside down. Number 18, Georgia Skin. In Georgia Skin, every card was dealt face up, and players bet on whose exposed card would be paired off first as the deck ran down, rank and suit meaning nothing, the whole thing a dead-even gamble, with no house edge and no hiding place. The Library of Congress still holds a recorded monologue of a man talking through how the skin game went, the rhythm of the calling and the matching. It came up out of the rural South and rode the Great Migration north in the pockets of working men, and it is nearly gone now, kept alive by a few who learned it from grandfathers. But the real money in a corner store sat right by the register. Number 17, the punch board in the family corner store. A punch board was a thumb-sized card riddled with holes, each holding a rolled paper ticket. For a nickel, a customer punched one out and prayed for a winner, and the shopkeeper, very often a family scraping by in the front room of the house, turned into a store, kept the difference. The makers spelled out the arithmetic right on the box. A Chicago firm, Brewer & Sons, sold a board it cheerfully called the New Deal. It took in $75 and paid out $37.50 in trade. The board itself cost $2.75, plus a 10% federal tax. It paid winners in store credit precisely to dodge the gambling laws. And even so, by the 1970s, they were outlawed in nearly every state. The next machine made no pretense of trade. It paid in nickels, and it brought the police. Number 16, the one-armed bandit in the back room. The Mills Novelty Company of Chicago turned out nickel slot machines by the thousands, and they sat tucked behind the counters of cigar stores and confectioneries, with 3 reels and a long steel arm, keeping between 25 cents and 50 cents of every dollar fed into them. To skirt the law, many paid winners in chewing gum or cigars, a wink everyone understood. And here is the axe I promised you. When the crackdowns came, police hauled the machines into the street and smashed them for the cameras, as they did in Mason City in the spring of 1936. A fortune maker the size of a bread box, and it had a cousin that looked like nothing more than a child's toy. Number 15, the pinball payout machine. The early pinball machine, born when Bally put out a tabletop game called Ballyhoo in 1931, Looked innocent enough, a board of pins and a steel ball. But once you learned the free games it awarded could be quietly cashed in for money, the whole thing changed from a game of skill into a game of chance in the eyes of the law. The California Attorney General, Ulysses Webb, declared in the mid-30s that the machines were tools of gambling and organized crime. A Los Angeles sheriff named Biscailus took it up like a crusade. The machines hid in plain sight in drugstores and ice cream parlors until the hammer came down. But the true house, with no toy and no pretense, ran behind a locked storefront door. Number 14, the Backroom Club. Behind an ordinary street front, a man could find roulette, chuck-a-luck, all-night craps, and poker that never stopped. And the king of them was the Harvard Club outside Cleveland, which ran from 1930 to 1941 and packed between 500 and 1,000 gamblers a night, defying raid after raid until a prosecutor named Frank Lausch finally shut it. It survived a decade on bribes and nerve. But you did not need a roulette wheel and $1,000 to gamble. You needed a wall, 2 dice, and a basement. We are past the games now. What is coming up was the actual job, the thing grown men did all night, on their knees in a cellar, to keep the lights burning upstairs. Number 13, basement craps. 2 dice, a stretch of floor, a circle of men, and the rolling of bones that could turn a week's wages over in the time it took the dice to stop. It flourished everywhere the law was not looking, in cellars and alleys and the back bedrooms of crowded apartments, and the come-out roll could feed a family or empty a man before he stood up. A factory hand could lose a full week's pay between supper and midnight and walk home in the dark to face it. The cellar version, lit by a hanging bulb with a lookout at the top of the stairs, has gone the way of the coal furnace it crouched beside. Upstairs at the table sat the man who took it more seriously than anyone. Number 12, all-night backroom poker. This was the deep game, the cash game, running from dusk straight through to the milk wagon, where the Harvard Club and 100 quieter rooms dealt poker around the clock. The pots grew into real money, the kind a man could not afford to lose and could not afford to walk away from. The serious player learned patience the way a farmer learns weather, slow and at a cost. There was another man in the room, though, who never touched the cards and made more than the winner. From here down, every one of these put food on a table, and a few built fortunes nobody was supposed to know about. Number 11, the Bookie's Handbook. While the states, desperate for revenue, were legalizing track betting through the 30s, until horse racing was legal in 21 of them, and the number of tracks jumped some 70%. The neighborhood handbook took the bets, the track could not. A bookie working from a back room or a kitchen telephone wrote down the wagers of men who could never reach the track, on credit, on a handshake. Bet wrong and owe a man who knew where you lived, and you learned what the word marker really meant. But the purest lottery of the age came on a little ball drawn from a bag. Number 10, Bolita, the little ball game. Down in Tampa, in the Latin saloons of Ybor City, where it arrived in the 1880s, 100 small numbered balls went into a bag. The bag was tossed and mixed, and bets rode on which number would be drawn out. The cheating was an art of its own. Certain balls were weighted with lead to sink, others were chilled in ice beforehand, so the picker could find them cold by touch. The Latin players gave each number a name in a system called La Charada, so a dream became a number and a number became a dollar. And the same dream into numbers magic, up north, fed a paper empire that reached into every tenement. Number 9, the lucky number incense trade. A whole cottage industry grew up around helping a person dream the right number. By the 30s, several brands of Lucky Dream incense were made for exactly this. They were burned in the bedroom at night so the sleeper might dream a lucky number and wake remembering, with a 3-digit gig printed on a slip tucked inside or hidden in the very ash. Aunt Sally's Sonny Boy, names a grandmother might still half remember. A nickel for a stick of incense and a night's worth of hope. And it all rested on one humble object on the kitchen shelf next to the Bible. Number 8. The Dream Book. Here is the GIG in full. The Dream Book turned a night's dreams into a day's bet. And the famous ones, Aunt Sally's Policy Player's Dream Book and Policy Pete's Dream Book, printed by Lewis Hartman on West 125th Street in 1933, listed nearly every word and image a person might dream, each with its lucky number beside it. You bet on groups of numbers from 1 through 78. A 2-number bet was a saddle, a 3-number bet a gig, a 4-number bet a horse, and the gig was what most people played. Some gigs were so beloved they had names. The washerwoman's gig, 4, 11, 44, and the dirty gig, 3, 6, 9. A dream of a death, a fire, a wedding, and you reached for the book before your feet hit the floor. But the slips did not write themselves, and someone had to walk the block. These last 7 are not side hustles. This was a bank, a queen, and a whole way of being a neighborhood. Number 7. The numbers runner's route. Someone had to walk the streets every day, collecting the penny and nickel slips, house to house and store to store. That someone was the runner, often a neighborhood kid or a trusted woman, carrying the dreams of a whole block in a coat pocket. People bet hoping to pay a bill, buy a refrigerator or a radio, or save enough to visit family left behind in the South. The runner risked arrest and a stretch in the workhouse for those slips, a paycheck stitched out of other people's hope. And every slip the runner gathered traveled to one quiet door. Number 6, the candy store drop. The slips and the money flowed to an inconspicuous collection point, a candy store, a saloon, a front room that looked like nothing, where the day's play was counted and tallied. And the remarkable thing is that policy did not even bother to hide. It ran in the open, in storefronts and on stoops, because the police had been paid and everyone simply knew. To outsiders, it was a sweet shop. To the block, it was the branch office of the only bank that would have them. And somewhere behind it all, on a schedule as steady as a church bell, a wheel turned. Number 5, the policy wheel drawing. Several times a day, the operators spun a great wheel and the numbers fell, drawn from a plain back building like the one at 751 Greenwood Avenue where this story opened. The beating heart of the whole enterprise. Everything upstream, the dream, the book, the gig, the runner, the drop, came down to this turning. A wrong leak, a rigged draw, a rival's muscle, and blood could follow the money. It was a lottery as orderly as any the states would later run, decades before they admitted there was money in it. But the most personal gamble of all needed no wheel, only a crowded apartment and a Saturday night. Number 4, the rent party. When the landlord charged a black family in Harlem 30 to 50% more for the same rooms, a white family rented cheaper. The family fought back the only way it could, throwing the doors open on Saturday night, charging a dime or a quarter at the door, selling fried fish and bootleg gin, and running card games and dice in the back bedrooms while a piano player worked the front room. On a single block you might find a dozen going at once. Miss the rent and you were on the sidewalk with your furniture by morning. It was survival dressed up as a good time, dignity made out of music and dice and pig's feet, but who actually held the money and made it pay. Number 3, the policy banker. The banker was the neighborhood's own bank. Policy was never only a vice. It was capital, real money circulating through a community the chartered banks had abandoned, and the banker paid around $600 on a $1 hit, took in the nickels and dimes by the thousands, and from that flood lent to people no bank downtown would see. The gig, that little 3-number scribble, was the single brick, and a banker built a fortune and a safety net out of millions of them. And the most formidable banker in Harlem, the one who terrified the men who came to take it from her, was a woman. Number 2, Stephanie St. Clair, the policy queen. There is your woman with the cleaner books. A black French woman who built and banked a numbers empire in Harlem. St. Clair ran her routes and kept her ledgers straight through the years when the great banks of the country were locking their doors and wiping out their depositors. She admitted paying $6,000 in bribes to police, then turned around and exposed them publicly, naming names. When Prohibition was repealed and the white mobsters who had grown rich on liquor came hunting the profits of black numbers bankers, it was Dutch Schultz who moved on Harlem, and it was St. Clair who fought him. What they were taking was not just a racket. It was the one piece of an economy her people actually owned. Number 1, playing the numbers, the G-A-E-G. Here is the master skill that holds all the others inside it, because to play the numbers was to set in motion a complete self-made economy a family could run out of a single front room. The dream on the pillow, the book on the shelf, the gig on the slip, the runner on the block, the drop in the candy store, the wheel in the back building, the banker who paid and lent and protected, the queen who fought to keep it home. It was nearly as organized as the state lotteries that would one day copy it, bone for bone, and call it respectable. And this is the thing to carry with you. The gig was never really a bet. It was how a shutout, broke, red-line neighborhood pooled its hope, ran its own bank, and refused to lie down in the very years the nation's banks had failed it and left it for dead. 25 ways ordinary people turned the house into a lifeline. The gig holds them all. So here is the only thing I will ask you to do this week. Find someone old enough to remember, a grandmother, a great-uncle, anyone who lived in those years, and ask them what number their people always played. I promise you they had one, and there is a story behind it. Tell me that story in the comments. The dream book on the shelf, the dice in the cellar, the corner store with the board by the register, because somebody in your family ran one of these, and that memory deserves to be spoken before it is gone. Next time, we are digging up 25 lost Depression-era carved nickel designs, the hobo nickels, ordinary men cut by hand with a chisel and a coin, the kind that now sell for thousands apiece. You will not believe what a hungry man could carve into 5 cents. Subscribe so you do not miss it. Because the gig, in the end, was not gambling at all. It was a homemade kind of dignity, and they were betting on each other.